It's recorded. Yeah, so as everyone's jumping in here, excited to have you guys at our Startup Grind Boston event. And obviously they're virtual now, so some of you might be tuning in from other areas as well. But yeah, we've been hosting virtual events pretty much pretty much about 2 every month since throughout the pandemic, and in-person events about 1 or 2 a month before that as well. Always like to bring in exciting speakers, founders, entrepreneurs, investors, experts in different industries to share their stories, and basically a lot of share their stories and lessons with the startup community here, and help everybody grow and scale their businesses. So yeah, we have a couple other events we posted earlier today on our site, so definitely come back and check them out there as well. Also have a good number of partners and sponsors that are helping make these events possible. Everything from we actually got connected with Dave here through one of our partners, Parna at Brandon Buzz Marketing. We have 2 sponsors, ShipQuid, who's helping companies basically figure out who their ideal customer profile is and make sure their whole team is on the same page, managing the sales team with the management team, and ties in pretty well with today's topic of finding your product market fit and your real customer there as well. We have another sponsor, Brex, that's started as the first corporate credit card for startups, and also has a cash management system as well to help companies through their startup financing. Several other partners. You can check out our page at startupgrind.com/Boston. And whether you need development needs, PR, marketing, consulting help from our group at Prepare for VC, or other aspects, we have partners in place that can help you with your current needs of your business. And if there's anything you don't see there, feel free to reach out, and happy to make some connections and introductions for you. So just before we dive in, want to play a quick video here from our upcoming, this is from the Startup Grind Global Conference. Normally it's in Silicon Valley every year. Gets about 4,000 or 5,000 people coming in, entrepreneurs from all around the world. And Startup Grind in general has 500 different chapters around the world doing these localized events. This year it's a virtual conference, and it'll be the end of February. So, some great speakers involved, networking portion, and chances for startups to come and exhibit virtually and get their company out there in front of thousands of attendees. Yeah, so you can check that out on our, we have a listing on our Startup Grind Boston page as well. And yeah, excited to see everyone, at both of our events and the global conference this year. And with that, I'd like to introduce our featured speaker, David Katzman. And we're going to be doing a fireside chat format. So we're going to keep it conversational. And anytime you guys have questions throughout, feel free to submit them in the chat, and we can open up a little bit more towards the end for Q&A as well, if anybody wants to unmute and ask some questions directly. So yeah, David, excited to have you here. And you have a great background through Onshape, which now became part of PTC through the acquisition there. A lot of experience in the customer experience and really finding the right market for your company and being able to manage how you grow and scale from an early stage through to now in more of a corporate role. So yeah, would love to have you share a quick introduction before we dive in.
Sure. Thanks, Jason. It's great to be here. It's great to speak with all of you. And as Jason said, please feel free to fire away questions. It's a lot more fun when we're all talking versus just me talking to you. For all of us, let me put it that way. So my name is Dave Katzman. My background is pretty technical. We can talk about that. But what I do now is I lead what we call customer experience and strategy for the Onshape team at PTC. And so I'm responsible for a variety of functions from what you know as customer success management and what we call technical services, which is really pre and post sales application engineering, as well as business development. And then I spend about half my time working on a broader set of responsibilities, both with PTC and Onshape as a whole. At the end of the day, most of my time is spent in one way, shape, or form trying to help make sure our customers are successful and that we're attracting and working with the right target customers all along the journey.
And so how did you get involved and meet the other or the co-founders at Onshape, and like what led to really so finding the initial market you guys found there?
Yeah, no, so like I mentioned, my background is actually pretty technical. So I actually have a degree in computer engineering, worked at a company called SolidWorks, which was really the predecessor in a lot of ways to Onshape back in college. That's actually the first time I worked for John and Johnny. And then actually after college, ended up going into consulting. So I did a variety of projects in tech and strategy consulting for Deloitte, and chose to go after that into business school with the idea of going back to Deloitte for a few years at least. But what ended up happening was during business school, John gave me a call and asked if I'd come spend the summer. They were just starting Onshape. It was very early days, no real business team yet, and helped think through a variety of different business questions, really. And the end of that summer resulted in me deciding to jump on full time. The reality is I've always wanted to get into the entrepreneurial world. I've always wanted to be towards a startup. I love the combination of where tech meets product, meets market. And so it was a perfect opportunity really to dive in. And so I've been with Onshape now almost 6 years, a variety of roles. But really, as you mentioned, at the end of the day, most of what I spent my time doing was helping try and understand and work with the teams on that product market fit conversation, a variety of ways.
So who is one of the main things you have to figure out there is who the real customer is and who benefits the most. So what would you say that persona is for Onshape, and has it changed along the way?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Actually, just for background, I'm not sure how many people know. So Onshape is really the only full SaaS product development platform. So when we say product development platform, we mentioned that includes things like CAD, so things that you might understand for design, as well as the data management and collaboration components that go with that. And so when you think about this industry, it really has been almost 25, 30 years since it really was innovated on, back when SolidWorks actually was brought to the Windows machine. And so for us, it was an interesting journey as we brought Onshape to market, trying to understand really where that value could be brought to the customer. In that, it's a bunch of different things between a new deployment model, as well as a whole new way of solving the customer's problem, which, originally it was, can we innovate on CAD? What it turned out to be is that we could actually innovate on the whole product development process. And that was really where the biggest value came. So, what originally started as a very targeted approach towards the user, which is something that is still incredibly important to us, we realized over time, and especially as we engaged with our market, with our potential customers, that one of the biggest innovations for us was really enabling the change of how products can be developed. And the more complicated or more complex the business was and our customers were, sometimes maybe the bigger value we could really bring to them. And so that was something that was a lot of fun to work on. And a big part of what the journey entailed was understanding the dynamics between product and market, and sometimes you have one go to market or one market motion over here and a product over here, and the goal over some journey is to really bring those together, which is really what I think we did quite well over the time.
And so how do you go about thinking, or thinking about, like, it's not just or you have the company overall, but you have new products and new releases you want to roll out. I guess, what was the testing model to see if each of those new avenues was a good fit for your customer base?
Yeah, we did a variety of things. I mean, I'll say from the top down, the culture is very customer centric, market centric. And so we do as much as we can to spend as much time both in the market and with our customers and with our potential customers as possible. One of the things I think we did incredibly well, about, not, I don't want to say it's halfway through some of the journey, was we created this group that we called the Modern Design Alliance, a little bit of a marketing term there. But really what it was a way for us to get a cross section of people together, from our early adopters to some of our more bigger potential prospects, some of our best small customers, and everything in between, together for an open conversation. And so we held these conferences really with this group of people, and it was a combination, and it had to be a win-win. In order to get the right people there, you had to have these forward-thinking innovators that could get value from the experience, and we were getting the value of engaging with them. And so we had people like Mark Andreessen come and present, and we had people from AWS come, and in return, we were also gathering a lot of feedback from them about what they were looking for in a solution and what they were struggling with the most in their business. And so it was really these experiences and these engagements and relationships that helped us really start to identify and fine tune some of our approaches, both from a go-to-market standpoint as well as from a product standpoint. It was also just a lot of fun, and I've been really lucky to have been a big part of that and have a lot of great relationships that we have with some of our best customers come out of those experiences.
Yeah, and so I think one part you talked about a little bit there was some of the company culture that led to this. So yeah, could you talk about a little bit what the dynamic was like between the team, and yeah, how that led to some of the success here?
Yeah, no, I think it comes really from John and the top down. The goal of Onshape is not to sell more Onshape. The goal of Onshape is to help our customers develop better products for their customers. And that has always been the goal. And that's been since I think the company was founded through today. And that's still something that is ingrained in everything that we do and every decision we make and every engagement. And so I think when you have leadership that embodies that and really believes that every day, what you see is a really passionate, I mean, I'm fortunate to work with both some of the smartest people from every department, especially you think about R&D and some of the things that we've done. And they're not just passionate about building great products, but they're really passionate about helping our customers. And so we spend a lot of time, as much as we can, listening to, learning from our customers, and also the people who don't become customers, because that's important information too. Now, we're not perfect for everybody. I'm not saying that, but there's a lot to learn from the people that you don't help succeed or that do struggle. And so both are equally important for us.
Yeah, and it's really important to have that communication and listen to customers, but also having a lot of ideas coming through. Like, how do you go through and filter, what needs to be implemented or what needs to be implemented first out of everything that's coming your way?
I'm sorry, did you say that one more time? Sorry, I just saw the question come in. I started reading it. Apologies.
Oh yeah. Basically, if you're getting a bunch of different or alternative ideas from different customers, how do you go through and validate, like, what should be included in your roadmap and what shouldn't?
Yeah, so a big part of when I talked about that Modern Design Alliance, a big part of what we did was we didn't want activist customers, which is a real risk you can run into, especially in the early days, of people that tell you this is the way it should be. But we focused on finding the right customer profile of people that wanted to improve the market and understood that our journey was the same. And so we always, we say we won't build anything for one customer, and it's true. So what we tried to find was the best representative customers who were both innovators and early adopters. And we spent a lot of time engaging with them, believing if we built the right product that added value for them, we could from there build out the market and figure out that product fit without trying to, boil the ocean in a sense.
Um, yeah, actually, that's a good time to build in one of the audience questions here from Jeannie. Can you talk about the early stages of Onshape and how the co-founders and you identified what problem to solve for and what steps it took to
Yeah, no,
validate that hypothesis?
happy to start on it. I should be clear. I wasn't one of the co-founders of Onshape. It was there were 6 co-founders, and Onshape was from a product side had about 2.5, 3 years of development before I joined on the business side.
Right.
Uh, so I think that from their perspective, and I don't want to speak for them, but this industry was ripe for innovation. It hasn't been really improved upon again in 25 years. And it's probably one of the last industries that really has been stuck in the mud in a lot of ways. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Don't get me wrong. It's not just because people don't want to improve. It's actually kind of ironic. We work with engineers whose entire job is to innovate and build new cool products. And they're probably one of the hardest groups to help bring along the journey to use new products. But their focus was this is a perfect opportunity. They saw the shift to web, mobile, cloud, and they said this is a great time for us to try and improve on the product development opportunities. From there, I think the biggest again lesson was this a disruptive technology from the bottom up, or was this more of a top down, or where did it fit? And that was what, as I mentioned, we spent a lot of time really engaging. And one of the biggest challenges is it's really hard to build this product and this platform. You can't kind of get it out there in a year and have something valuable. It takes a lot of time and investment. And the team raised a lot of money, and we built an amazing product. And then from that point on, it was a matter of turning the dials and tinkering until we got it right.
Um, no, that sounds yeah. And so, like, when you went through that whole process, sort of tying in Oleg's question and a little bit expanding there, I guess, yeah, his question was what worked at Onshape from a product market fit perspective. And I think also be great to hear what wasn't working and some of the competitors that show that, there was an opportunity to capture a little bit more of the market here as well.
So what did work? I think the big thing is we built a product that adds value to our customers, and that's the end goal, right? Of building a product, you want to actually build something that's valuable to your customers and to your market. And I think um, we've done a lot of that, and that's the good part. What didn't work is it's hard to say what didn't work. The thing about product market fit is it isn't a yes or no question. It's a journey, and so I think at all points you have to be aware of the fact that you're on that journey and engage in the process of being relentless with that pursuit. And so I think we actually did a really good job of trying a lot of different things. And at times, I'm sure we had some missteps. Um, but in the end of the day, we found and we built a platform and a product and a go-to-market motion that helped solve and build out the market for us.
Yeah, and so did anything change between I mean, it's a different environment. You started with Onshape as a startup. Now, it's been acquired and it's part of the larger, it's part of the corporate brand under PTC. How has that environment and the way you think about interacting with customers changed through the acquisition?
Yeah, no, it's been a year now, which is kind of crazy to think about. I remember exactly a year ago, and the fact that 9 months of that have been basically from home is a whole different, part of the conversation. But it's been great, honestly. The thing that's been awesome is the amount that we've continued to improve on our journey as a result of the acquisition has been, I think, for everybody a really exciting thing for us. So it is different. Don't get me wrong, but we're still operating at high velocity. We've doubled the team basically in the past year. We're continuing to invest as much as ever into our customer, into our platform. And so I think what we really gained is a huge engine behind us that is very committed to the market, to the opportunity. And I have to say, cross functioning, what it's really opened is PTC is an amazing technology company too. And so we've been able to work collaboratively across the organization in ways that we just never could have done on our own as just a VC backed startup. So it's been a great journey.
No, it's great to hear there's a strong fit there, and yeah, I mean, you don't always hear that in terms of like the team being excited after they get acquired, and sounds like you guys found a great fit in terms of like company culture and everything there as well.
No, no, absolutely. I think, PTC has been a great place for us, and it's really a heavy focus right now internally of really focusing on that customer centricity, and it's been a lot of fun to be part of that innovation.
Yeah, I want to tie in one of Eric's questions here. He highlights that Henry Ford said if you ask a customer what they wanted, they would tell you a faster horse. So, how does that play into your philosophy of like customer feedback and interactions there?
No, it's a fine line, I think, between an innovator's path to building something that's disruptive or different, and hearing feedback and taking it um, directly. And so, you have to have a goal in mind and be willing to challenge the market too. And so, of course, people always ask for what they know, and our job is to educate them on what's possible. And then again, the big part of the early product market fit journey is to find the right partners in that process to engage with, the people who actually understand that there is a better way that could be, and have their minds open. And that's what we spent our time on, because once you have those early adopters that are successful, it's very easy to then build a market around them. So you have to your
Right.
point, you have to, again, I mentioned it, but you got to be really careful with the product activists and make sure that you're hearing all of the feedback, and then your job is to understand it and put it in context. And that's probably one of the hardest things to do.
And so, how do you balance, that the feedback or the verbal feedback from conversations with, actually seeing how customers are using and interacting with the platform?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that actually helped me a lot was having a technical background and understanding what the platform was doing, what the customers were doing, how they want to do it, and trying to translate that, especially in the workflow side with the background in consulting. Part of my job was trying to triangulate all of these different data points into a conversation and a solution for them. And so, it was hard at times because you're trying to make sure that you're pushing at the right time on the right questions. And part of it is just confidence. We knew our platform could add value, and so we were able to go in pretty confidently to the conversation with customers. But at the same time, you need to balance that with, there's a lot you don't know, and so it's a very open-ended conversation, and that partnership. And I mean that, really deliberately. It's a real partnership in the early days, especially as you figure this out.
Um, yeah. So, what was basically, yeah, in the early days, obvious, yeah, you touched on this a little bit here. Some of the early adopters are the ones that have the biggest needs for your product, and they came on before the people that really needed to have more traction before they tried something new. So I guess, how did you find who had the biggest need, and um, you know what their pains were that Onshape could solve?
I think there was no shortage of people to talk to in the market. And so, I don't know that there was one specific pain that we tried to solve. It was a variety of things, but the biggest thing we were looking for were people that were open to innovating and changing the way they develop products. And everyone, I mean, everyone has pain. And our job was to, frankly, bring out that pain so they were more aware of it and then go and solve it.
Yeah, so as you guys look to expand now, like with as Onshape PDC, what are you looking, or basically what does the future look like, and what are you guys excited about in the market and the expansion pathway from here?
I think we're excited about continuing the journey. We're really still just getting started. There's a lot of work to be done. It's a big market. There's um, a lot of potential customers to work with and to help them be better and solve customers' problems for themselves. So, it's a lot of fun. I'm not a builder myself. I wish I was. I love the idea of working with physical goods and physical products. But I'm a computer guy, so I'm a 1 and 0 guy. And so what's really fun is helping this industry that serves so much, and doing, especially this past year with all of the good that was done, with some of these innovative companies that came out of nowhere to build, whether it's a ventilator or and watch them just embrace the new ways of working. I have to say that the future is a lot more fun even than the past, seeing all these potential opportunities. And so, you know, one of the big things for Onshape, it brings the ability for remote work no matter what. You know, we had this platform that embraced this opportunity, and here we are. I mean, I would never say that COVID was a good thing. It was the worst thing we could ever imagine, but it was nice to see so many people be able to jump in and help each other, and a lot of them used our platform to do it.
Yeah, that goes really well into Parna's comment here. Actually, right before you went there, it appears remote working's here to stay, and how do entrepreneurs and business leaders take this into account when they try to find product market fit for new products?
Oh, that's interesting. That's a loaded one, Parna. Um, there's,
Tough question.
I think a big part of what's happening right now is the whole world is trying to figure out a new paradigm to engage with each other, to engage with their customers, to build products, to bring value. And it's going to be, a very interesting several years as a whole new crop of creative ideas, creative solutions comes out with this concept of both remote work and just a whole new way of engaging with each other.
And so, have you yeah, how has the environment like within your company changed? Are you is everyone still remote, and like has that dynamic shifted the way you guys interact?
Yeah, from an Onshape and PTC standpoint, we are fully remote pretty much up and through. I think at this point, July, we've embraced that. I mean, for Onshape, we always had a remote workforce, and PTC is a global company, so did they. So we've always had the tools in place. I don't know that we ever expected to utilize them the way we have, but we are fully remote, fully working, same way we always have, full speed ahead. What's been interesting and different is our engagement with customers, because what used to be a plane trip and experience is now virtual, which brings with it some pretty unique benefits and also some obvious challenges. The benefits are, I'm not on a plane every week, and I'm not in a hotel every other night, which is nice. And the fact that we can do more of these virtual sessions means you can see more customers, engage with more prospects, engage with the market at a higher volume than you ever could before, when there was always this time spent traveling or moving around. But one of the big negatives, at least for me, has been, part of that foundational relationship is built by shared experiences. And so you lose that ability to really have that foundation. And so, I think that's been something that we spent a lot of time figuring out new ways of doing, or trying to complement just the normal engagements. But I look forward to, I don't look forward to traveling again like I used to, but I do miss that. And I look forward, I think a lot of people do, that ability to really build those relationships in person. So again, a lot of challenges, but a lot of benefits too.
Right. And how is it, on the customer side, I guess, are there certain areas that Onshape has helped them as they transition into more of the remote workforce here?
Yeah, so I think from our customer's perspective, what we've heard is Onshape has let them not have to change. Just like, when you use remote video conferencing, all that, Onshape from a product development meant that they could just go remote without having to think about it. They can work from anywhere on any platform. What's been interesting is people that have come to us to help them transition to this way of working. That has been a more interesting, because that was part of our conversation always. We always talk about the ability to work anywhere on any device. The need for it has been exacerbated to the nth degree, and that's been a bigger part of what's changed really over this past year.
Yeah, we have an interesting comment and question from Ethan here. Basically, it's around how in some of the customer conversations, depending on how you phrase things, they can get bogged down in one or two negatives and not focus on, basically how do you steer people to focusing on what your product can actually bring and serve to them in a positive way?
Yeah, that's really that's the challenge of balancing the feature function versus the value conversation. So feature function, you're competing on stuff that's minuscule and often not super relevant, but it's very easy to go back and forth and compare. When you have alignment on the value conversation, and that's why we spend more time up front, especially in the engagement, the conversations, understanding the aspirational side of challenging them, the way that they work today, challenging the assumptions about that they put on their workforce and the way that they design products, and engaging at the level of what is possible if you change fundamental technology underpinning the decisions you've made for years. When you have that alignment, the negatives, while they exist, go far, far down in terms of volume, and the benefits are amplified. And that's what is really, really important, especially if you're going to bring a disruptive technology to market. I think that is something that understanding the value conversation, the aspirational conversation, more than just the feature function conversation, is incredibly important.
Right. So really how you're, making them think about it and painting that picture of what the future could look like with your products and everything you need to build out.
Exactly.
Um, yeah. Yeah. I have a question. Not sure. Yeah. I guess Tino, if you can clarify that in the chat. What's next in terms of, I guess, in terms of Onshape or in terms of other areas here. But yeah, I guess, is there anything, in terms of the overall like product development market, I'd like to ask, what are you seeing or is the way, yeah, how is the way you view like the market, the competition and everything changed, or what do you see as up and coming innovations in that space?
I think, I mean, one big thing that's changed, and it was already moving this way, but the current situation has amplified and magnified it really, is everyone knew that there was a migration to more SaaS and cloud technologies. And I think everyone is trying to get their solution there as one way, shape, or form. What we see that's a real challenge, and it's part of our job as educators, is to educate the differences between a built from the ground up full SaaS platform and a lift and shift or a migrated platform, and really explaining and helping the customers understand what benefits they can gain from each deployment method and each solution. And so that's probably the biggest thing, is the entire industry is shifting, but whether they can get far enough as a whole, remains to be seen. I think one thing that's really unique about us is we started over. Onshape was built literally from the ground up with the architecture, the goals based around a full SaaS, full cloud platform.
What what excites you the most, like when you're when you see, or your customers are also companies that are building on top of the platform or using the platform and sort of growing their businesses through Onshape. So what do you guys look for and track in terms of success on the client side?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to get a company into production as quickly and as efficiently as we can. And in production to us means that they are using our platform to design and build new products for their customers, whether it's faster or better. And not every company has a target of getting a product out faster. Sometimes it might be a better product in the same amount of time. But whatever they define as success, our job is to do whatever we can to enable that. I think what's been especially, for me, it's a ton of fun when you see things, I say in the wild, but when I see something down the street that I know is built in Onshape, developed in Onshape, there's just a little bit of a sense of pride in that. Something that's been uniquely positive this year has really been, again, some of these life-saving products that were innovated and built in over completely remote, with people on teams from around the world collaborating together in ways that they never could have or never would have in the past. That was something that, it was actually quarter our mission was to enable that type of work. I don't think we ever could have in our wildest dreams thought it could be used to build things like the Masks On project, which is pretty public, and in a way that to generate more PPE for doctors and nurses, worldwide, and to see a team of, again, a worldwide team come together in the pace that they did and the rate that they built the new product was just something I could never have imagined.
Oh, that's great to see. And yeah, it must be exciting, like seeing everything. There's certain use cases you would imagine for this, and then there's a variety of customers that are using it in new and exciting ways that weren't even part of the original plans. Um, yeah, do you want to talk about so that Mask On project? That's like through the Onshape platform, people are basically able to provide and service masks to.
Yeah, so MaskOn, they basically created a special filter. Really, they took scuba masks and medical grade filters and combined them to have a whole new way of getting that out there. I think actually, I'm looking in the chat.
Great.
Parna just posted something in there that has a lot of information for people that are interested.
Sounds good. Question from Scott here is about how you change the customer behavior into this platform versus the methods they were more familiar with on the traditional CAD and engineering, product development, other tools they had been using in the past.
So if I understand, how did we help the customers transition from the way they used to work to a new way of working? Is that
right? Was there any pushback on, it's easier and simpler tools or more user-friendly technology, but was there any pushback on like changing from the way they were doing existing business?
Yeah, no, there's no question. I have to say, for engineers are the most innovative people you can be around, and they are the least willing to change typically. They're very risk averse as a group, typically, because they're under usually tight deadlines, cost constraints, all those things that makes it hard to really change the way you work. And it comes really back to what we always really try and focus on is having an executive or a leader champion and a user champion, someone who can represent both ends of the conversation, the process and innovation and business side, as well as the person who justifies and explains it to the rest of the user community, that they can get their job done just as well, if not better. That was something that we spent a lot of time on, really building those champions and engaging with them and learning from them, frankly. But a lot of the conversation, you have to make sure that you have this vision alignment. It's what we would usually go to, and we would talk to customers, and I would say, if you put your product development process on a whiteboard and everywhere you saw X software or Y software, you flipped an Onshape, and that was your vision, that's really exciting and it'll help you, but it's not going to be compelling enough to make a big transformational shift. But what you said is, oh my gosh, that process is 25, 35 years old. We could have done it on paper and pencil, and we really want to change, but our technology underpinning doesn't really embrace that opportunity. Now we're having a real conversation about Onshape helping you change and transform your business. And that's a much better conversation to be having than, can you do this or that with our technology from a feature function standpoint. So that was a really big part of our evolution, especially as we moved up market, and how we talked about the product and the value it could bring.
Yeah, I think that ties into Tino's question here as well. And he's also, from his other comment, also working on CAD related software in sort of the manufacturing side. I guess there's more of a learning curve that engineers have developed in the CAD space, and what were the main things you were highlighting, and like why they should shift from the old way of using those products to what were the main benefits they would get if they came and switched to Onshape?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. So one thing is, we didn't recreate parametric computer aided design. That's a well-known paradigm. We think in certain places we improved upon it, but the paradigm by which engineers and CAD users understand their job isn't fundamentally changing. What we've tried to do for the user especially is really alleviate a lot of the pain associated with the way they used to work. So there was the process pain and the technology pain. And we tried to alleviate as much of that as we could through a variety of things. So for instance, we don't have any crashes. There's no such thing as lost work. You can't lose your data. You can't be working on the wrong version. You can't, any of those things that any engineer that's ever been in this industry for any period of time has faced, and sometimes faced more often they'd like to admit. Those are some of the things that we really spend time on the user level explaining and educating on. One of the great things about our platform is it's very accessible and we can get it out to you and in your hands pretty quickly. So a part of the journey is helping them understand and actually feel the value of Onshape. Me talking about it is really nice and fun and everything, but a user who actually embraces it and feels how much better they can work and how much more efficiently they can engage, that's really what makes and sells the product. And so our job is really to share the vision and to get them successful. And from there, the rest is history.
Yeah, so a lot of our audience are earlier stage startup founder or early to mid stage startup founders. And yeah, I guess, thinking back about everything, all the experiences you've had and everything you've learned, throughout the time at Onshape and before that as well. I guess, is there anything like if you were sort of starting a new company or, a little bit earlier on in the journey, you'd make sure, definitely do this when you're talking to customers and in that testing phase with the market there?
Yeah, it's interesting way you phrase that. There's really, I guess, there's probably two things I'd say. One is balance the desire to, a lot of times, especially in tech companies, there's this deep desire to be in stealth mode for a very long time until the product is perfect. And then you go out to the market. And sometimes that works and it's great. But a lot of time you don't have that feedback that you could have had earlier in the process and pivoted and made modifications along the journey. And so balancing the two, the desire to be perfect and stealth and the desire to get feedback early and often, is something I think everybody needs to keep in mind. And the sooner you can get real engagement with the market, and again, not your product activists, but your actual early adopters and your innovators, the sooner you can have that engagement, the better. And so that's one, I think, critical component. And two, ask the questions you don't want answers to, and spend the time really learning and listening as much as you can. It seems obvious, but people like to hear their product's great and things are awesome, and they want to be in an echo chamber sometimes, not intentionally. That's human nature. And so really spending the time and asking the second and third level questions to understand the next level. And people are often going to tell you great things, but actually getting them into production or actually using it at some level is more important than any conversation you can have. And so spending the time helping them through that journey at a heavy engagement, it's not scalable, but the sooner you can do that and the more you can do that in the early days, the more you'll learn by far.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, and I think, part of it is just getting out there and being able to, speak with more people, be able to listen to them, and not being afraid to have those conversations. And might take a bunch of no's before you get to a yes, but it's all learning, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so on and in this market as well, like, I guess, what types of innovations have you been surprised that, or you talked about the mask example, are there other areas you were sort of surprised that people are able to use it, and it's an even bigger market than you had originally anticipated?
I think one thing that we've talked about publicly, and it's no surprise, is the education market. We built an enterprise grade platform, and we're lucky enough to be able to make it available to the education market at scale. And to see the tipping point really, from our standpoint, has really hit that market moving towards a more remote work and adopting products like Onshape. That's been, I think, one of the biggest. Again, we always knew that market would be a great fit for us, but to the extent that it just has really grown this past year is something we're really excited about, and it's a great great testament to the platform, the ability to scale, but also just to the future of work, really knowing how to embrace these modern technologies.
Um, yeah, and I think, yeah, as we look towards that, I mean, there's innovations that are here or we're here sort of to get everyone through the pandemic, and then I think there's a lot of innovations that helped but are also here to stay. And how do you see companies, or I guess your clients, and the users of the platform thinking about, is there something we need to build for the next 6 months, or is there something we need to build for the next 5 years from now?
Are you asking more about from a what they're building?
Yeah,
For
I
the
mean, so like going into, or I guess nobody really knew how long the effects of COVID will last. But yeah, basically, we're companies coming in and trying to figure out what can we do while we have to shift to remote work, or were they thinking about like what do we need long term, and how do they balance those two aspects?
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing is everyone's embracing the fact that what's next will never be the way it was. It's not clear what it will be, and it's
Right.
not clear. It's definitely. I mean, let's all hope it's not the way it is right now. But I think everyone's embracing that there's a ripe opportunity for transformation in the workforce, especially in how you engage with your colleagues and how you recruit people, where you recruit people. And so what I think what people are really thinking of is a much more broad evolution of the way that they go to market, the way they build their products, the way they build their companies. And we've seen that from our side, really with the way people have come to us, talking to us about, hey, we know we're not going to be like this forever, but we also know we're not going back to the old way. So how can we utilize your platform? What can you show us about how others have utilized your platform to really encourage and embrace these opportunities? So I'm excited to see what it will mean. I mean, for us, I can tell you we've started hiring people more with less focus on specific locale, so we can get a more broad set of people working for us, and we can do that because of the technology that we've embraced over this time too, especially.
Right. No, that's interesting. So, and yeah, I mean, you had mentioned, PDC was already, and Onshape as well was already sort of had embraced the remote workforce before. Obviously, you guys were, or, or the core group was in the office, but yeah, in that dynamic now, like I think, yeah, it makes sense. A lot of businesses are looking towards like, how can we just find, the best engineers, no matter where they are. If they're in Boston, great. If they're in other locations, great. And yeah, it's an interesting model, and seeing, how that's going to play out longer term.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, so I just yeah, as we head towards the end of the chat here, thinking about basically, yeah, we had talked about sort of where you're excited about and heading, yeah, heading with Onshape, and all the products that can be developed and the reasons people are excited to use it. So like if you could look ahead, you know, five 5 years from now, what would you say makes, or what would be like a successful, what are the areas you're most excited about in terms of, do you want to see a lot more customers using it? Do you want to see innovations that are huge that were driven and like started by Onshape? Or what are the things that get you most excited about your customers having success?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, to be honest, customers having success is what it's all about. And it's not just, that is what we're here for. Seeing more people in the world benefit from our technology is a lot of fun. It's motivating to say the least. And again, our job is to help our customers develop the best products for their customers. We're just a step in the journey. And so what we really want to do is have our tool and have Onshape, the platform, get out of the way of that and make sure that it enables people to build those best products. And so it's 100% focused on that. The customer success is what matters.
Perfect. Yeah, and so I want to keep the last portion here. If anybody has any questions they haven't had answered, and if you want to unmute and ask anything, we'll try to do it sort of in an orderly fashion. But yeah, if anybody wants to ask any questions, feel free to. Yeah, Tino, do you have something you want to ask?
Yeah, so I mean, Onshape is at the front end of the engineering process, but the back end is a physical product or some sort of product, right? And so in Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution, it's all about connecting disparate systems that are already digitized but otherwise separated. And so CAD CAM is a bridge to a lot of processes. And so how do you, have you guys, have you all thought, even in the broader PTC world, of how you're going to enable that?
Enabling the full digital thread, is that, kind of the topic, or I just want to make sure I'm answering the question?
Yeah, well, let me the question is self-serving because we're doing a mass customization startup. So from something imagined in digital form into a physically delivered product in under 2 weeks.
Wow, that's awesome! Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a ton of fun for sure. And so I'm wondering what's next. What should I be looking at? Because what we're doing is already connecting these disparate systems into a process, a method and a process and a distributed network of idle CNC machines of a certain class. Because and we're only constraining to a certain class because A, we can't boil the ocean, and B, harmonization of data is the hugest. It's the biggest, or the lack of harmonization of data, or the lack of harmonization is the biggest impediment to getting what we're doing done. But so by working with only woodworking equipment, we can harmonize at that really low level, at that, And so, what do you see from your seat in the world? Your umpire's chair in the world. How do you see the world evolving?
Well, that's a loaded question. Let me start by saying I appreciate the umpire reference. I played baseball, so I always appreciate the connection. Yeah, I think what we're seeing is an encouraging signs of people embracing these new platforms now more than ever. And what we're seeing is more and more doing what you're doing, this connecting systems, connecting the dots and removing some of the, I'm trying to think of the right word here, but removing some of what makes everything unique to the point where you can get things that are at the lowest common denominator so that you can share more data and engage with people at a much better level. We try and do that as much as we can. We democratize some of the data and allow people to collaborate on the same data set worldwide. We don't want people sending things around, right? We want there to be one master source of truth. And I think what you're talking about, if I'm going to take a step back, is really that concept end to end. So more than just the design data, the CAD data itself, but all the way through all the pieces of the puzzle through the end result. And eventually, I think what we all want to see, and it's a great dream, and we'll get there eventually, is all these things connecting back full circle, right? That's the vision. That's the ultimate alignment, to have these feedback loops that can encourage and embrace all of this data in a shared form. So I'm not sure when we'll get there and how much, there's an evolution that we're on, but I think it's an exciting time to be in the industry that is changing. It's one of the later industries to make some of these bigger shifts, but it's doing it. And it's been fun to be a part of it on the early days. And it's a lot of fun right now to see a lot more happening across the board.
Yeah, I mean, what you just last said was fascinating because that's exactly where we want to take this. You know, we want to be the Star Trek replicator button on Pinterest.
It's one of these days. I look forward to hearing more. That's very cool.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate, yeah, appreciate the question and the insights there. Yeah, any other questions that didn't get answered so far? Yeah, if not, like, yeah, really appreciate everything. Yeah, David, I think you did a great job, and we all learned a lot here today.
Thank you, Jason. It's been fun.
So yeah, I guess if people want to learn more about PTC or follow along with some of the other, seen you've done a couple other events recently, and have a lot going on as well. So yeah, where can people like follow everything you're doing and everything Onshape is doing?
If you ask me where, onshape.com is a great place to go.
Sounds good. All right.
Thank you,
It
Jason.
looks like Parna's just shared her LinkedIn and David's as well. Yeah, if anybody else wants to put theirs in the chat and connect, definitely do that here. So yeah, appreciate everyone for coming on here today. And yeah, thanks David for a great chat. We have a couple other chats scheduled. Start 2 in January. I think, yeah, at least one in February, plus a Startup Grind Global Conference. So definitely check it out on startupgrind.com/Boston. And yeah, let us know if there's anything else in your startups we can help with.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.